right, you guys, this again is Jasmine Baker and Rachel Gallion as we host the Brunch Breakdown. And as you can see, we still have the lovely Ari Chambers with us. And today we're also adding Kelsey Trainer. Welcome, Kelsey.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm pumped.
I'm excited to finally have you around. Listen, we got to do this host real quick. Tell us what you're drinking first.
I have a lovely strawberry lime mojito with real live basil in it. So, did it up for this. Did it up for you guys.
Not the basil, yes.
Yeah.
And Ari, what are you eating?
I was trying to put that out of frame, Jasmine. Dang. Like, I'm a wine too, so I'm like on brand.
All right, toast to the good life.
Cheers.
Ladies.
All right, Kelsey, let's get into this. There's a lot to talk about, very little time. So tell us a little bit about your thoughts on the draft from last night, considering it was the first pro virtual draft, and what it means for women's sports.
I mean, first of all, I thought it was very well done from a production standpoint. I know that people had issues with it. I know people, disliked that there was a lack of coverage of like the later rounds and focusing on some stuff. But from a perspective of something that's never been done before, I thought it was outstanding. I mean, the first 30 minutes to an hour, something that you're going to need people to like continue to tune into. I thought Kathy Engelbert did a fantastic job. I thought the studio, ESPN, and, there was some gaps and some silence and some technical issues, but given that, seeing that horse game played and how horrible that was, I was terrified for what this W draft was going to look like. And I honestly think that they knocked it out of the park overall. Were there issues? Were there problems? For sure. And is it something to kind of consider? Hopefully we never have a virtual draft again. But overall, I was really impressed with it, with the league, with the players, and always looking for more Sue Bird on my television.
I thought it was really interesting. People who have followed the WNBA for a long time, we're used to getting a 30-minute draft segment on ESPN2, and it's like bam, 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 bam. And I think a lot of us had the same concerns that you just talked about after the horse competition and this whole virtual world that we're living in right now. Like, it was kind of an unknown, and I agree with you. Like, one, we were able to have our league on the main ESPN network. Huge win for women everywhere. To have a 2-hour block, regardless of how you cover the later parts of the draft. It did get a little bit,
right.
There's no way to cover all of it in 2 hours, but we had a 2-hour block where we were able to really go in depth, and we did the tribute to, those magnificent young girls who lost their lives. And really, I think that the production of it, and combined with the technology aspect, like, yeah, there were some hiccups, but I agree. Like, we knocked it out of the park. I really felt like it was a great job.
And they only had a month to plan it. Mind you, we just had the NBA canceled March 11th, and then to be able to use technology, they sent out kits to the various draftees. They did a lot of testing, so it was as seamless as you can have it for it being the first. And it was the guinea pig. Like, they had the short end of the stick because NFL draft now knows what they can and can't do. That there's going to be communication there, and it could have gone really left, and it didn't. It went really right. It was trending #1 worldwide, so that's huge, main channel. But like, a lot of people, it was interesting to me because second and third rounds have always been broadcasted like that. They've always been zoomed by. So I think that they took more time with the first round and allowed us to, get to know people a little bit more, had a nice rundown for people. And then because they couldn't bring the players back, maybe that's why it felt a little bit rushed. But, I think that it was a great effort on both ESPN and the WNBA's part.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, what was done to online and with outlets like the ones you guys have, Highlighter, W Insider, I think they also did a great job in terms of adding to what we generally, I know you guys would have done a bang up job regardless, but I think they also helped add on to, with us, the social distancing. I think it was brilliant. And I look forward to seeing what we can add to in the future because of this, and what that silver lining will be. As far as when we talk about the future, to segue into that, what does that look like as far as the WNBA is concerned?
Honestly, it's not great, right? I think women's sports in general are going to take a major hit financially, right? The WNBA is in the position of being backed by the NBA. So they're in a position that's better than women's sports everywhere else. But it's still, we were riding such a momentum. They had the new collective bargaining agreement, which what no one's actually really talking about is that the 50-50 revenue share from the collective bargaining agreement was premised off of hitting certain targets in this 2020 season, right? So we have all these new things and all these exciting parts of the W that were coming about, and it's truly unknown. I just don't think there's any way they can actually hit those targets. That means less money for the players, which was, the main thing that we wanted, and the actual start of the season and when it would happen. The latest that I've been hearing was, Vegas or a lone site. I think they have to do it in conjunction with something along the NBA as well. I think they would do it with the NBA. It's the only way to make money.
No, I agree. I'll just jump in here. We talk a little bit about it in the first interview. I think now that the draft has passed, and now we start looking at what's next, and it is a little bit of an uncertainty. I mean, how do you pull this off? Where do you pull this off? Ari brought up a great point in the first segment about the potential of this being pushed back to like maybe August or September. And then, you're no longer talking about these women going over to Europe and playing in EuroLeague, which there's a health concern with that. And there's a lot of moving pieces with this. So I'm just curious of kind of your thought process on this, Kelsey. If you're Kathy Engelbert, ooh, and you are in charge of this league, knowing everything that's going on in the world, in an ideal world, how does this look?
Well, yeah. One, hopefully Kathy Engelbert someday, running stuff somewhere. But I think that from a safety perspective, you cannot be the people that are putting your players in harm's way. Let's not even talk about having fans there. You're putting players in harm's way for a lot of this. I think that there's going to be some loosening up of some guidelines, and I think medical advances they're going to get us there. And I think there needs to be creative ways to make money. I mean, that's what it's about right now, is making money, because you're not going to have a full WNBA season. I just, I'd bet money on that right now. And, maybe the tournament style kind of round robin type play. But we've got to, if I'm Kathy Engelbert, the thing that I'm looking at right now is what's the least amount of games that we can play and make the most amount of money off of, from a branding, from a sponsorship, perspective, because I think that's the only thing that actually looks viable.
So what do you guys think? I'm curious, anyone, everybody chime in. What are the chances of there being no WNBA season at all?
Like I said before, I don't think that's going to happen, but Kelsey does bring up a nice point sorry about earlier, my dog was barking, I was on mute, and I was like, what is wrong with this little child? I'm sorry to the fans out there, but I think that they're going to be able to capitalize off of rivalries a lot, maybe like the feature games, maybe I don't know how it is going to be like on networks, if the sponsorship money will increase because everybody's going to be forced to be watching TV. Like there's guaranteed viewers because everybody's home, so that could be a stream of revenue. I don't know how they're going to go back to having fans so suddenly, because even if they do have the technology and medication for the players, the fans is another situation. And we have found out this virus is airborne, so that's a thing too. There's a lot that goes into this, but we have to sit with the uncomfortable reality of prioritizing where sports is. A lot of people put it as a number one priority, but is it over health? No, so that's the uncomfortable situation we're in right now.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing I keep going back to, is just like the health of the players, and like how the logistics of this, and how it would, like, realistically, how is this going to happen without that? Because I mean, to me, I keep going back to, well, if you do have it, and then all of a sudden now X amount of players get sick, it's, it puts the future of the league at risk in general. So I don't know.
Right. And it's a liability. I mean, it's a liability for the league itself legally. I mean, I'm not taking that on. I'm not saying to all these players, hey, come in this place. Then you're exposing all these other places. You need a venue for every team to practice. There's certain guarantees that they'll have, in terms of facilities and hotels, and you need a place that can hold all that for, however many teams.
But we can also factor in the fact that there was going to be an Olympic break. We can take out training camp. There are ways or like shorten training camp. There will be no preseason tournament. So are we losing that much time if we do start in like a July or an August? So that's something to consider too, because we do have all these extraneous things that we typically do, but because of the time crunch, we've had a shortened schedule before. So I'm wondering how they're going to adjust if there is a season that starts a little bit later.
Well, and I think it's important, and Kathy Engelbart talked a lot about this past week on multiple, of her press conferences. She talked about this thing is evolving every single day. This is changing week to week. It's so hard for any of us and anything that we are involved in from a professional standpoint, from a viewership standpoint. It's hard to predict where our world is going to be come July. I think about the amount of time I've been quarantined in this house. It's been a month as of yesterday, and I'm just like, wow, how much has changed in a month, and what we know and what we don't know, and it's April 19th from the time this is airing. Ooh. And so, a month from now, we're looking at end of May, maybe things are looking up. So I do think that there's such a fluidity to this, that is just ongoing, that it is still very much an unknown, and it is still very much a day-to-day kind of conversation, because we don't know what could happen.
Scary. Just plain scary.
No idea.
Well, I have one more question too. Someone brought this up to me, and they were like, I had tweeted something this week about, kind of getting the conversation going about these sites, and what do people think of that? And honestly, that's what the executives and everyone in multiple professional sports leagues are talking about. It was just a specific site and running the season through that. And someone said, well, what does that do for season ticket holders? I thought to myself, and I was like, I can't even answer this, because for the WNBA specifically, how much is generated through their season ticket holders. When you talk about places like Seattle, Connecticut, the places that are pulling in these massive crowds, that's a huge part of the revenue comes from season ticket holders.
Yeah, and I think I know for a fact that is a huge concern of a lot of women's sports executives right now. It's like, and people who are into women's sports, a lot of us are, we love it, right? If I have the money and I don't need, and I don't have to get it back, I'm gonna be like, keep your league running, keep your staff employed. But not everyone can do that, right? That's a luxury and a privilege. People need their money back, and that is absolutely going to destroy, the front offices, the everyone that's working there. It's just a real horror, kind of one of the horrors of what's happening here.
I do have a question, oblivion and ignorance, but like I mentioned about the networks, is there a potential for a higher ceiling with the monetary, of streaming it on a network now that we know that eyes will be on it?
So, yeah, so I can tell you right now, overall, because I work for a media company, we have a network. Okay. I can tell you for a fact that, even though page views and views of everything have gone up, the CPM and the advertising costs have gone down twice as much. So I think there's that in and of itself is a sell to advertisers, is like, hey, here's the people that are viewing it. But again, how does that actually translate to people buying the products, right? Because a lot of still, at the end of the day, buying the products, Banana Republic, all these places, you're not buying clothes right now to go to work because you're not going to work. So you can advertise all you want for these brands, but if there's people aren't able to make money off of it, they're not going to be spending the money. So I think I agree with what you're saying. I think people are going to get creative in ways to do it, but you're not going to have a commercial for Broadway when Broadway can't come back, right? They can't come back. So it's just not going to be out there. So you're limited in what you do have.
I hate that the league, the W, was the first sacrificial, season of this, because, that's where we would normally start. So it's just going to be interesting, because I know there's going to be heavy enthusiasm once everything does resume.
Right.
But it's just will we make it through this blackout period? Because I know there were talks in 2016 where they couldn't survive a strike if they were to have one. So it's just going to be interesting to see if it is put off, or, if it is canceled, could they survive that too?
And I know a lot of people, some people take issue with having with Kathy Engelbert being such a business mind in the position that he's in, like, oh, she's not this basketball person, right? But right now, that's exactly the type of person you want in the position that she's in. You don't want somebody who's just straight hoops. And so I think, any survival is kind of dependent and based on that.
I have one more question. We've got a few more minutes here. I want to talk about the actual draft itself. What's your guys' opinion on it being held when it was held versus being postponed? I know there's kind of been some conversation with that. Kelsey, I'll have you start with that.
Yeah, I mean, I was a big proponent on that it needed to happen when it happened, because when sports come back, they're going to be, like Ari was saying, everyone's going to be excited and everyone's going to be hyped, but they're all going to be really excited and hyped for men's sports because that's the moneymaker. And so women's sports are going to suffer so much financially from this. And we've had such a momentum in women's sports. You've had the U.S. women's national team equal pay lawsuit. You've had the new collective bargaining agreement. You have the move to Barclays for the Liberty. You have all these things that are happening, and we're on this wave, and then it's like ready to just crash, right? Except the Liberty or the WNBA is like, we're going to continue to have this draft on April 17th. We're going to hold it virtually. We're going to have Sabrina Ionescu, the top college player in a long time, to be coming out of it. And so they're continuing this wave of momentum, so it's not crashing. And so I think it was so important.
I also think that they allowed the collegiate fans to support, the people who they would have supported during NCAA playoffs. So Oregon fans got what they wanted. South Carolina fans got what they wanted by seeing their favorite players be showcased. I thought that it brought joy and hope to foreshadow the season. It needed to happen now. I don't see a point of postponing it because the same players would still be there. You might as well go ahead and do it while it's fresh and keep something of routine because we don't have any of that right now anyway. So that was good in itself. The fact that there is no programming now that allowed us to get on the main channel, that's important too. So that all these are components of why I think that it was a great, choice by the league and ESPN to still air it at the same time.
Yeah, it's pro sports. That's the way I see it. It's pro sports. At the end of the day, I mean, it had to happen. So again, basically, same things you guys were saying, just had to happen. And I think, especially with us still trying to figure out or struggling at times to make sure we keep that connection between college fans and bringing them to the pro side and, remaining loyal to these players. I think it was great for that. So to wrap this up, though, I did have a quick brunch question. So, when you're at brunch, you got to ask your girls about life questions. So I have a life question real quick. I know. I haven't even talked to Ari about this yet.
They should know the WNBA is so important. That's it.
Thanks. So I recently started talking to somebody who is a Chicago Sky fan. Now, I'm wondering, should I hold this against them or not?
You're not going to get me in trouble so I can have the Sky fans in my mentions. Absolutely not.
I mean, I'm from Chicago, so no.
Listen, I'm a lawyer, so I'm going to plead the fifth.
Look, it makes good for good sports talk, good arguments. You can plead your Dallas case, and they can plead their Chicago case, and then when y'all play each other, it's like a house divided. Period.
Go. I love it. See, thank you. This is why I got the W brunch.
Welcome in the talks, the rivalries. Welcome in. Even though it's not really a rivalry, but whatever. Welcome in it.
Yes. Bring that in. Energy, as Ari would say.
Well, thank
you, ladies, for joining us in our conversation. This has been fun. We hope you as the viewers enjoy our little brunch post-draft conversations that we have. Looking forward to more conversations as time goes on. Cheers, everybody.
Hey guys, Brady Diaz here. So a few days ago, the Mystics had the 12th, 24th, and 36th picks, but they gave up Shatori, their 12th pick of this year's draft, and future picks for WNBA veteran Tina Charles. The deal's for 1 year, so Tina and the Mystics will have the opportunity to test each other out. With Deladon, Misaman, and now Charles, the Mystics front court is scary. Last season, we saw how many teams were unable to guard Emma. So can you imagine a team having to find an answer for Charles at the same time? Neither can I. Good luck. All three can score at the basket and from beyond the arc. After all, we did see the Mystics go big plenty of times last season, so I can expect Coach T to bring them all out at the same time. The 24th pick was Jalen Agnew. History was made as she became the first ever Creighton Blue Jay to be selected in the WNBA draft. She finished her season by setting her school's all-time record for points in a game with 43 against Georgetown. She was also named Big East Player of the Year. She lives behind the three-point line, shooting 38.5% from beyond the arc. Two of her last seasons, she shot above 40%, and over 56% of her total shots came from long distance. She already got a nod from Coach T. He said, "She fits the mold of our team. We love three-point shooters." That's a great compliment. We also know she's a great free throw shooter. Agnew made 76 of 80 free throws for the season to lead the nation. Guys, that's 95%. And the 36th pick was Shug Sutton, who played with Ariel Atkins. And Coach T said, "We felt we wanted to see a good point guard come into our camp and compete with our veterans for a spot." Shug pushes the tempo and knows how to distribute the ball. So you know practice is going to be competitive this season. You know, the Mystics have an incredible chance to run it back. I believe they can with their new pieces and the people that they have retained. So I think it's going to be a great season for the Mystics whenever the WNBA season does resume.
Hi, my name is Capri Garner, and I'm a content provider for Made for the W. And I'm here today to talk about some of the players who I believe might get a shoe contract. All right, so first up on my list, Sabrina Ionescu, walking triple-double, Player of the Year. She spent the last 4 years with Oregon, the Nike school. So I think it'll only make sense that Sabrina Ionescu sticks with Nike. I think Sabrina's platform is only developing, and I think it will continue to expand. Definitely, I feel like if she goes with Nike, because Nike is a forward-thinking company, and last year they worked with Elena Delle Donne on the Nike Universes, which was, you know, a great shoe that was created to include all people, and not just basketball players, but all people, you know, in general. So I think that was a great move with Nike, and they showed that, you know, they're willing to, you know, work with players and see through players' visions. And I think Sabrina Ionescu would be a great player for them to capitalize off of, and I think Sabrina Ionescu would also capitalize off of Nike as well. Next up on my list is Satou Sabally. Recently on IG, her brother posted a video of him like panning a collection of Jordans. He posted the most recent Jordan, you know, the Jordan basketball shoes, but then he also posted, you know, the court ones that recently dropped. And also, he also posted a pair of Jordan ones that are dropping next month in May. So I think that's, you know, like a hint, wink, wink, red flags that Satou Sabally might have already signed a contract with the Jordan brand. So that'll be really interesting to see, and we'll be looking out for that announcement. And the third player on my list who I believe might be getting a shoe contract deal is Kennedy Carter. She's a junior that's also entering the draft. She's been with Texas A&M and Adidas school, and I believe that I think she can do well with Adidas, but I also think that Under Armour also might be a great platform for her, because right now a lot of the young players, the young girl players especially, are looking up to Steph Curry, and I think that Under Armour needs to bring on a player like Kennedy Carter, who can, you know, take that audience that Steph Curry has and bring it on over to her and capitalize off of her and her career, because she's a young player with a lot of heart. She's electrifying, and I feel like she's a really good role model for young players to look after, and especially that same similar type of guard play like Steph Curry. All right, so those are my top 3 players who I believe might be getting some shoe deals. My name is Capri Garner. You can follow me on IG at Preachy, and don't forget to follow Made for the W at IG and Twitter.
Hey, women's basketball fans, Erica L. Ayala, aka Auntie, here to break down my article in The Athletic recounting the Penny Toller lawsuit. Penny Toller, former general manager of the Los Angeles Sparks, was fired in October. She was fired after an article was released stating that she used racist language. She used the N-word, the GGA version, according to Toller herself, in the Sparks locker room. She was fired immediately after, the morning after that article hit. She now is filing a lawsuit, 10 total counts, but the big ones are that she was discriminated against because of her gender, that it was a wrongful termination, and that she's owed back pay. So let's talk about the wrongful termination, and that's pretty basic. According to Toller's contract, there were 3 reasons that she could be fired. She's making the argument that her rampage is not one of those reasons. The gender discrimination. Now, this is where things get a little bit scandalous. According to Toller, her actions were no worse than any of the males that were in the organization at the time. Particularly, she's talking about Holloman, who was having an affair with Simmons, and, according to the lawsuit, the Los Angeles Sparks head coach in the years 2015 and 2018, who is now currently the head coach of another WNBA team. No, Brian Agler's name is not in the lawsuit, but yes, that is who she is talking about. According to the lawsuit, there was sexually inappropriate behavior being perpetuated by this head coach in 2015 and 2018 that was overlooked and never addressed by the organization. Toller feels that she was wrongfully terminated and discriminated against because of her knowledge of the affair and because of her knowledge of the sexual misconduct. As it stands now, the lawsuit is filed, but all of the Jane and John Does named, they now have to respond. However, with that coronavirus now closing down courts, it might be a while before we get a resolution. We need a resolution. You know, Aaliyah? Anyone? Okay. Anyway, it might be a while before we know what really went down. If you want to check out that article, go over to The Athletic. Also want to give my homegirl Kelsey Trainer a shout out. She breaks things down over at High Post Hoops. Yes, it's scandalous. I recommend reading the entire document for yourself. Everybody got time these days. All right, Auntie out.
What's going on, WNBA fam? Hope y'all enjoying your brunch. Hope you get sipping on a little something, because you know, this Rona, right? I really am looking forward to doing the next brunch. Hope y'all enjoy it. I know that there are a lot of people we wanted to have on here, and y'all know how hectic it is during the draft time, trying to get people. So I appreciate everybody that showed out, took a time out to send us plenty of videos, information, and those who took time out of their schedules to hop on Zoom with us. Before we get off, I definitely want to let you guys know a few quick things. Shout out to WBB Timeline. They're literally one of my favorite WNBA accounts. They give us constant stats, numbers, history. I think it's so important to talk about history, especially when it comes to this league, because people often forget who came before them. And I think it's important that we continue to strive to put numbers out and to also show love. Make sure y'all retweeting and following Curtis. Plus, he's one of the shadiest ones in the bunch, all right? Love his work. Shout out to Curtis. Speaking of Curtis, I appreciate him. Anytime I ask him to send me stats, he does it. So quickly, I just wanted to give some stats about this particular draft. This is New York's first ever #1 draft pick and the first for an Eastern Conference team since 2014 when the Connecticut Sun drafted Sinead Bouquet. Now this is big business, right? Right about now, I know there are a lot of stoked New York fans. Congratulations, New York, on the #1 pick. Kennedy Carter became the earliest player selected from Texas A&M by being a top 4 pick. Kelsey Bone went #5 to New York in 2013. Bone also entered the draft with a year of eligibility remaining. Hey, ladies and gentlemen. Now, for those of you who have perused WNBA Twitter, you've noticed an odd-looking icon who is now becoming an icon unto herself. Ladies and gentlemen, I have an exclusive interview today with the legendary Diana Taurasi's Bun. How are you doing today, Bun?
It is a pleasure to be here. This is long overdue. Happy to be here.
I'm glad you could take time out of your busy schedule.
I got all the time.
What have you been doing in the meantime to take care of yourself during the quarantine? What's been your regimen every day?
You know what? Honestly, just trying to keep my sanity. We've been doing Zumba TV and do some Zumba, and we've been, doing arts and crafts. I have some Legos, all sorts of different things. Just trying to keep my sanity. That's all it is.
Nice. Last night we had a draft. How do you think Phoenix did? How would you rate it?
I think we did pretty well. We have the 10th, the 18th, and the 29th pick. With that first one, we have Jocelyn Willoughby, and we trade Walker for Kimbra, which I really like. I really like that move. She's coming from a winning team. She's a scorer, playmaker, so I was really happy with that move. And then we have Cooper. And Cooper, I was watching some highlights of her, She's a tricky kind of a player. She drives to the basket. She has good moves. The last one, Stella Johnson, she was our 29th pick. And what I hear from her, she's quite happy with what it, how it went. I mean, we didn't do like New York, we didn't have half the draft, but I think we did pretty well. Okay. Well, New York and your team.
Dallas seems to always do really well in the draft, and everything else just falls to pieces. But as far as the big three goes, Diana Taurasi, Brittany Griner, and now the Wings' former player, Skylar Diggins-Smith, all on one team. What's one word you would use to describe the big three in terms of how happy you are about this?
I'm ecstatic with the big three. DT, we know what you're going to get from DT. You're going to get leadership. You're going to get scoring, BG, she's a presence in the middle, blocks, defense, playmaking in, and that mentality. Let me tell you, I was not a Skylar fan. As a UConn fan, I was not happy with Skylar. She has broken my heart. With Notre Dame, UConn, that rivalry, you know how it is. And those players that are polarizing because they're so up against them, you want them on your team. So now that she's on, she gets all the love from the buzz.
Okay, yeah. She's going to get a lot of love from a lot of new fans, as far as I'm concerned. I definitely wish her the best. Y'all getting one a top-notch player. Like, you just can't, they don't build them like they used to when it comes to her. She's definitely a very unique player, especially mentally. The last question. Worst case scenario, we have no WNBA season. What are gonna be your thoughts and plans regarding that?
That's hard, We might have to get a little horse competition between the fans. I don't know. I don't know if I can go with that long without basketball.
This is the WNBA Brunch Breakdown. Thank you for coming on today. And my question to you is, what are you drinking at the brunch?
At the brunch? Oh, man, you put me on the spot. I'm just having some water.
Okay. And then,
oh, man, I should have got my chai.
Yes. Nice chai latte. Definitely. Well, hey.
What's in that cup, huh?
Hey there. Hey, you take care of yourself during this quarantine, and thank you for coming on.
Hey, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. Anytime.